Bill Thomas was born in 1927 in Washington, D.C., and attended Princeton University and the University of Wisconsin, obtaining a doctorate in chemical engineering. He retired from DuPont Company in 1989 from their X-ray film plant in Cedar Mountain, North Carolina. He led the Friends of the Horse Pasture in the campaign to save the river from damming and finally to have it placed in the National Wild and Scenic River System. Among his activities since the horse pasture experience have been chairmanship of the NC chapter of the Sierra Club, member of the NC Governor's Western Environmental Council, co-founder of the Southern Appalachian Forest Coalition, co-chair of the National Sierra Club's National Forest Subcommittee, treasurer of Friends of the Falls, promoting purchase of the Anthony Inn holding in DuPont State Forest, Sierra Club's point man on formation of Gorges State Park, recipient of North Carolina's Order of the Longleaf Pine, and board member of the Carolina Mountains Land Conservancy. He lives with his wife Cheryl in Cedar Mountain and is an active outdoorsman, birder, and photographer, currently serving as conservation chair of the Pisgah Group of the Sierra Club in Transylvania and Henderson counties, and on the Citizens Advisory Committee for Gorges State Park.
Well, I appreciate that everybody came tonight and gave up the music center. I'm honored. It's a tough competition to be up against. You heard last week from Rick Wooten about the geology of our area. He talked about the subsurface, you might say, and the history that went before. So you know from what Rick said that we're living on a very old landscape. It's a real special place as far as the geology is concerned. Since the mountains were thrust up 350 million years ago, this area has never been underwater and never glaciated. So evolution has had its time to work on this landscape over all that enormous length of time, which has resulted in tremendous amount of biodiversity. It's a very ancient landscape. The rocks that you actually see on the surface are much, much older than 350 million years, as Rick pointed out, more like nearly 1 billion. It's also a forested mountainous region, and it's big, maybe 300,000 acres. I haven't run the calculation, but it looks to me like it could be. The topography is very steep because we're on the edge of the Blue Ridge Escarpment, where we drop nearly 2,000, 2,500 feet down to the Piedmont. As a result of our location on the escarpment, we have lots of rain, which produces lots of erosion into deep gorges with lots of waterfalls. This map, I think Rick showed this one too, shows the rainfall distribution in western North Carolina. We are, see if I can make this work. We are situated on the South Carolina border, right in this region here. We're in the little kinky part up here in Transylvania County. You see that's all blue, which says rainfalls in approximating 100 inches a year. I think Gorges 2 years ago actually hit 108 inches of rain. One other point to make is, as far as conservation value is concerned, bigger is better. Not for your waistline, but for conservation, for species biodiversity. A number of studies have been done which show that the number of different species that can live in an area increases as the size of the area increases. Enough work has been done to show there's an actual mathematical relationship. The number of species is proportional to the area taken to the 1/4 power. If you use that equation to calculate things, a 90% reduction of the area would lead to a loss of half the species. If you look at a 300,000 acre size being reduced to the 1,000 acres of Sherwood Forest, we would have 5 times fewer species than the larger area. Here's where we are. This is really the key map to consider. Here we are up here, the little blue-green patch. I'm standing in front of you guys. The little blue-green patch is Sherwood Forest. The state line is essentially, well, here it is. It's a dark gray line on here. It runs all the way down to where Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina meet at Ellicott Rock, where the Chattooga River crosses through. The Foothills Trail is this dotted line. And I'm going to use that Foothills Trail in the talk to kind of guide us through. I'm going to start at the west and move to the east. If you've gotten the idea already that it's a special area, that it's big, it's important, and that the map looks like this, you can go home now, because from here on, I'm just going to be hanging tinsel on the tree. Maybe a question to address before I get going, though, is why is it still wild? Why is it still undeveloped? If you think about it a minute, because it's on the escarpment, you realize it is rugged country. Travel was always difficult. The mountains were a barrier to people moving from the coast. There's no flat land in this area for settlement or farming. There are a few places where there were what is called canebrakes, but they're rather small. As far as I can tell, there was, from reading historical accounts of what it was like back in the 1700s, the settlers in Charleston were pretty far from the coast, and it took them a long time to work their way up toward the escarpment. Even the Indians had no villages in the escarpment area. They were all scattered along the foothills of the escarpment. And the major travel routes moved around the roughest places, didn't actually go through a lot of the area that we're talking about. Another reason it's still wild is because there have been ongoing protection efforts for quite a while, at least back into the 60s. I want to give special credit to the Natural Land Trust, which was founded by Tommy Weitz, a lawyer in Greenville, in 1973 with the express purpose of protecting as much of the South Carolina escarpment as he could. The Carolina Mountains Land Conservancy works on the north side of the line to protect property in our area. I'll show you some places where they're working still. The Nature Conservancy has been involved. They have an easement on the Greenville watershed that dates back to 1994. A little bit newer outfit is the South Carolina Upstate Forever organization, which I think probably was a spin-off from Tommy Weitz's efforts. His son Brad headed it until just a year or so ago. Then there are other organizations like Friends of the Horse Pasture, which managed to get the Horse Pasture River into the National Wild and Scenic River System. The Friends of the Falls that got the inholding in DuPont Forest into the state forest. Sierra Club, which was heavily involved in funding the purchase of Gorges State Park. And I'm sure there are other organizations that I ought to have here but don't. Let's start in the west, like I said I was going to do. This is a map put together by the Wilderness Society in connection with the current forest planning process. The areas outlined in black are areas that they consider to be still unroaded, pretty wild, worthy of long-term protection, however it goes in the forest plan. Ellicott Rock Wilderness is right here in the middle. Chattooga Wild and Scenic River flows through Ellicott Rock. The only reason for putting this slide up is really to show you that our region that we're talking about reaches all the way over into these three national forests, Chattahoochee in Georgia, Nantahala in North Carolina, and the Sumter in South Carolina. So you're looking at a big area. Overflow Creek is a wilderness study area. Here's a blow-up of Ellicott Rock Wilderness. Foothills Trail runs through it. You can walk from here to the Whitewater River. The Foothills Trail starts at Oconee State Park. There is actually an Ellicott Rock. Really.
You have just seen a sample of Bill Thomas' presentation of the geography of our area. Following will be the rest of his slides. Enjoy. In the future, his entire lecture will be available in the Center's library.